So first, as you know, there is a Groups tab right here, and Groups is where we create things like assemblies. Unfortunately, I like to be able to drag things from the items list to the Groups list, and for that reason, it's nice to have a separate window sometimes. So I'm going to come to my System, or Layout menu, I should say, Palettes, and then straight down to my Groups. Open that up in a separate window, and that's going to be a little easier to work with. Now I'll click on my New Group command. And I'm going to name this ramp1 is fine. Under type, I'll choose assembly. And then mode, it's very important to choose empty. I don't want selected items because actually in Modo there are lots of different things selected that you might not realize. We have a mesh item selected, yes, but we may also have some materials and other stuff selected too and not realize it, and those will end up in our assembly. So let's just make it empty, hit OK. And now, when we expand this down, we have no actions, no poses, no items, no channels. We have a completely empty assembly, which is exactly what we want. Good. Now let's take this ramp and just drag it straight into that assembly. And now, if I expand the items, I have one item, plus, actually, it has added that render thing. You got to watch this, man. It adds all kinds of stuff you didn't intend to add. If that happens, right-click and say Remove Items. There we go. Now our assembly just has that one object, which is exactly what we want. So we could just head over here to our Setup tab, head to the Assemblies tab in the Setup area, right-click this guy, and come down to Save Assembly, right? But look underneath here. We can actually replace this thumbnail with an image or with the last render. Really, really handy stuff, and it's very helpful to be able to see a thumbnail of what this thing is in the assembly. So let's actually go ahead and first, let's create that icon. Let's go to our Render tab here, and I'll head up to my Items list. I'm going to hide that test sphere, get that out of my way, rotate my view around, zoom and pan back a little bit. I'm going to grab in my shader tree, let's select that render item, that render node. Head down here to the frame. We'll set the frame width to 512, height to 512 as well, so we got a nice square image to work with. Zoom out to where we fit that item in our screen. Go to my global illumination, turn off ambient. Let's enable global illumination. I'll turn on RayGL for a second. Now this is looking way blown out, so I'll just turn off that directional light. And also grab my environment and make it not visible to camera. So it's a nice just black background, exactly like we had on that sphere. Get this guy centered, set up to render, and real fast like, we start to see what our ramp looks like. That looks fine. That is definitely enough of an image that I can see what this is. So close this up, head over to our Setup tab, Assemblies, make sure to deselect so that nothing is selected. Right-click on this guy, and then say Replace Thumbnail with Last Render. It's going to ask us if we want to resize it. We do. And now we can see what this thing is. Really nice. Right-click, Save Assembly, grab my Meshes folder here. I'll call this my ramp1. Save it. And now, let's close this document. Don't save. Go back to our Layout tab, and we'll notice down here in our meshes, here's our ramp1 that we just created. Double-click that, and we have a ramp out there in space. Easy peasy. All right, let's do something a little more fun.